what I wanted to ask you about in verbally communicating with a dog, do you just primarily see people, because you mentioned tone, like do you see people who are just way too soft in their tone when they're talking to dogs?
That's a great question. Some I do. I would probably say some of them are possibly a little too stern at times, maybe. And maybe stern's not the right word. It's just there's a time to be a little firm, and then there's a time to be excited about things. Mm-hmm. So picking and choosing those things throughout the training process, and making sure you're doing those things in a timely manner, like excited when you're supposed to be and firm when you're supposed to be. It's really picking up on those things that most people probably need to look for when doing a dog or training a puppy, or an older dog, is looking for those things, like thinking about how the dog's reacting to what you're doing at the time, but also encouragement coming into you on a retrieve, or if a puppy's, let's say you throw a retrieve out and the pup is running away from you a little bit, or picks up the bumper but doesn't come directly, you can kind of change the inflection in your tone, get his attention, and then get really excited to draw him back in. So that's what I would, when I talk about tone, mostly I'm talking about that, just changing the inflection in your voice into, either a verbal correction or a, positive, exciting voice to, reaffirm the pup that it's doing the right thing.
So you're almost using your tone to make sure like, right now I've got your attention, dog. Like whatever you're doing, now I say this, you pay attention. Now I know I can lift things up a little bit, get excited. That dog's, we're looking at each other. We've got this going on, and now that dog's going to listen.
Right.
Got it. So I was surprised to hear you say that you see people who are too firm a lot, because I always feel, and obviously my experience is a lot more limited than yours, but I always feel like people are way too soft, and they're like, hey, Fido, come on over, and that dog's like, I know she's going to say this 9 times before I actually have to listen, before she gets mad and raises her voice, and then I have to come.
Right. And, some of that might be, so I see a lot of I see a lot of that. I see a ton of that. But when they're with me, maybe they're acting a little bit different, with me being a trainer, and they're wanting to. So, when I'm demonstrating something with their puppy that they're about to take home, sometimes I see, maybe they're overcorrecting just a little bit and being a little firmer than they probably should be. And then, when they get home, they might be soft, like you're saying. So I see it both ways, but sometimes I'll see them being a little bit more firm with commands when on too young of a pup, or just a little bit too firm on, just handling and body language on occasions.
I do wonder, I'm glad you brought that up, because it makes me think, like, is somebody coming there and they want to impress you and they want this dog to really perform, so they're going to try to like kind of be a badass and be like, I got this under control. So maybe they got their foot on the gas a little too much, and then when they get home, they're a softie. That makes me wonder.
I don't know. I have no idea on that one. It'd be interesting, to be able to try to follow that and to see actually how things go. I would say most people, I don't want to be rude by any means or anything, but I would imagine a lot of people are, they don't have the structure. So therefore the dog, when they get home, they are soft with the dog. Yep. And, the main thing I would stress with anybody taking a new puppy home is just structure.
Yeah.
The more structure, the better. And the more mental stimulation, the better as well. Puppies don't need a lot. I mean, they need a lot of physical exertion and, to get out there and exercise. But at the same time, they need a lot more mental stimulation, and just little things that you do with puppies goes a long way. They'll crash and burn. I mean, it's like, a kid going to school for a couple of hours in the morning, he's going to be exhausted by the time he gets home, probably want to take a nap. Same way with a puppy. If you're intentional with it, it's going to pay dividends. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, that the concept of Anybody with the common sense God gave a toad knows that puppies need exercise, dogs need exercise, but the concept of mental stimulation feels like a newer thing generally. That's like kind of in the working dog zeitgeist where people are like, okay, I kind of get that now. And it is so beneficial to them, whether it's, like a little 20-second deal you do with a little puppy, or it's more of a complex advanced level stuff with a 2-year-old established dog or a 5-year-old established dog. They all need those challenges, and they need to problem solve, and they need to use their brains and their bodies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're exactly right. I mean, whether it's a older dog or a, younger dog, I mean, it's beneficial to them. It's beneficial to their health. And, at the end of the day, and it's going to be more beneficial for you because you're going to, if you're all dogs need a purpose. I mean, they need a purpose, whether it is, it could be the littlest of things or it could be the biggest things, but they all need a purpose. So finding that dog's purpose and moving forward with it and being able to stimulate it mentally it's far better for their health and for your health at home. I mean, you're going to be a happier dog owner for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that kind of ties way, way, way back to what you brought up about socialization. And, we go over this a lot, but it's common to think of socialization like, oh, I want my dog to be a good dog around other people and other dogs. And like, that's a component of it, but you're also allowing them to build some self-confidence in new situations and become calmer in a wide variety of places. And that's like, not only does that just translate to a good dog later in life in your house and your in-laws' house and wherever you take them, but also hunting. You take your dog out unless you hunt the same spot over and over and over and over again, that dog's going to be out in new places and you want him to be comfortable. And now you've got a dog that you've been working with that's learned to solve some problems and is constantly engaging its brain to answer questions. And you have a dog that's like, okay, now I'm comfortable in this new situation. I'm going to solve some problems. Like, where are the quail? Like, how do I get them up in front of this gun?
Right. No, absolutely right. I mean, it's beneficial. I mean, for those dogs to be able to have a purpose. That's the main thing. And challenging, don't be afraid to challenge the dog, but be successful with it at the same time. So,
yeah, you don't want to. I mean, they're not that hard to trick. Like you don't want them to fail. You want your dogs to work but succeed.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned something I was going to bring up a while back and I forgot. So in talking about, you mentioned some of the things you see amateur handlers do wrong and timing or maybe they just don't understand. But one thing I'm always curious about is like, what do you do for somebody? So they come to you, they say, Sammy, I need a puppy. I need to start a dog, or, here's my 6-month-old. Can you work through these things? And then they come back and get this dog you've had your hands on. Like, how much are you going through like the process and like saying, hey, this is what you have to do to keep this dog where it's at? Like how worried are you about the attrition when that dog goes home?
It depends on the client, but I try to spend as much time as possible with them, whether it's a puppy or, an 8-month-old dog going home, or even some pups. We'll keep some puppies here just for the initial, crate training, obedience, stuff like that. But, an 8-week-old puppy, we schedule about 3 hours per client when they're picking up a pup. And they'll take full advantage of that 3 hours. Sometimes it'll run even a little bit over. So, I'm trying to spend as much time and, going over the things that we've already introduced the puppy to at a young age. And then these older dogs, we'll spend, 1 or 2 times a month. Sometimes if they're a little closer, we might spend a little bit more time, with the client and going over the things that we've done. And then, like I said, we're always keeping in touch throughout the whole process. But I try to work, if I'm sending home a dog that we've had here for, whether it's 6 months or, 3 months, I'm trying to spend time with that person, showing them the drills and showing them how to handle the dog and working with them through these problems. Like I said, sometimes even just, you know, even just casting a little bit different. If they're trying to cast a dog a little bit different than I've done, sometimes that'll throw the dog off. So you've got to make sure, you know, that I'm on the same page with the owner, and the owner's on the same page with me on casting, or, you know, just handling in general, and, you know, the process that we've done with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've mentioned several times throughout this just about consistency, and you know that's a big hurdle to get over when somebody like you is handling a dog, and you know, with what you understand about dogs and how you know how to train them, and you know all about their body language and everything, and then you hand them off to somebody who's just a different person, doesn't have the same experience, and now you're crossing your fingers going, hey, listen to me about this stuff, because this dog needs consistency. And it's really, I mean, it's different, but kind of in the same ballpark as, you know, if I get a puppy and I work with that dog every day, and, you know, I go on a trip and my wife's got that dog, now there's a huge inconsistency in, you know, how are the commands being given, you know, what's going on there. And so that's one of the big hurdles of just, you know, dog ownership in general, if you have somebody else take some part of the training or the handling or the care of that dog.
Right. It is. And, you know, we're trying to set them up to where they're not going to have issues, but ultimately, I mean, there's going to be some things that, you know, they're going to have questions about later on. And, you know, I mean, there's always going to be something that kind of comes up or arises that, you know, they're going to have some questions on it. So, and we try to, you know, handle that the best we can, you know, whether they're, you know, 2,000 miles away or 100 miles away, you know, I mean, and technology's really helped out a lot. I mean, we can, you know, FaceTime and send videos and do these things. And there's a lot of great programs out there now too, that are, you know, really good, that, you know, are teaching some guys some of these things. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, there's almost, I mean, the amount of dog training information out there is freaking bananas now. I mean, it's wild what you can learn. And I mean, like you said, people have access to the best dog trainers in the world every day. It's crazy. So it's just a lot of times it's just a matter of initiative on our part, on the amateur handler's part. I want to switch gears just a little bit here. So Livingston Gun Dogs is most well known for British Labs. Why?
Oh, that's a great question.
What was it about them that you're like, yep, these are my dogs?
So let me kind of tell you a little bit of a story, and then kind of it'll evolve into this. But so I was in the private sector for a number of years, and managing a kennel and training at this kennel in the private sector. And when I first showed up, there was a litter of lab puppies, and they were probably about 4 months old when I showed up. And me as a trainer, I'm always trying to think like, what can make my life a little easier, and then possibly streamline some of this stuff, and just learning how to better handle situations that I'm in. You know, we're always learning from the past. I mean, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. So I'm learning as much as I can, and I try to retain that to where I don't make the same mistakes again. So there was this litter of lab puppies there, and the trainability really wasn't there. I wasn't, you know, it seemed extremely difficult to accomplish little things. And so I started looking elsewhere while I was continuing to train them, and just started looking overseas. Another friend of mine that actually worked for the same people, and we decided to import a dog over, and it just kind of grew from there. So I was in the private sector. This was in 2007. And just, you know, from 2007 till 2015, when I started my own business, I'd been importing dogs from the UK, whether it was Ireland, Scotland, or England. Mm-hmm. And it was a night and day difference between the puppies. And I just kind of carried that over and that's where my love of labs started, was there. Growing up, we had short hairs. We had probably 20 pointing dogs in the kennel when I was a kid, and they were mostly short hairs, a few pointers, and we had one lab in the kennel. So, I grew up with it and just kind of always had bird dogs, but then I started into the lab side, and it just has really grown from there. And now what we're producing, there's a lot of guys out there producing British labs, and there's a lot of great ones out there. I think, kind of what sets us apart is probably our puppies. We're really proud of our puppies, where they're at when they're going home, and how biddable and just smart and intelligent, and the training, the trainability is there, everything else. And I've carried that from, 2007 to present day.